Hi guys, it's Coach Joe Micela with Performance One Advanced Sports Training. Today we're going to go over core exercises for weightlifters. We have with us today Jessica Walters is going to go over one of our major exercises that we use for core development. Wherever you go in the US or in the world, weightlifters are going to perform a variation of this exercise, and that is your hyperextension for your back. We're going to go over a couple of variations that we use here at Performance One. One is your standard movement. Now, getting into this apparatus, how we position ourselves on there will determine whether you feel this more in your hamstrings or you're going to feel this more in your lower back. We want this to be a lower back exercise. So when Jessica gets in here, she wants her hips pretty much lined up to that pad and not getting too excessively off or too far back, okay? We have that balance. So the most basic one that we're going to use is like we're going to do an RDL or even a good morning, we want to keep this whole spine flat. She's going to hinge through her hips and she's going to lower herself down toward the floor. Again, we want that hinging from her hip and her whole back being flat as she comes up to slightly above parallel. Now, she doesn't have to keep going crazy, but we want to come just to above parallel. Yes, she's going to squeeze the glutes, she's going to squeeze the hamstrings, but we're primarily looking at this as a hinge for her lower back, and she's going to go back down, okay? And then she's going to come up, and she's going to take a rest for a second, okay? We like this exercise in a variety of different reasons. Why? She's isometrically holding her lower back. Just like in an RDL, you're holding your back in a postured position, hinging through the hips. Same thing if you're a good morning, okay? Now, because of this angle, it puts it directly in there, okay? We take a balance of taking the hamstrings out, we're taking other muscles out of it, and we just focus on those spinal erectors, which are huge. Once we do that, another variation that we'll use is basically like a reverse crunch. She's gonna come down one vertebrae at a time into a little ball, and she's gonna slowly extend her body up. This is very advanced kind of movement. So she's gonna give it in the same position she was before. She's gonna now roll down into a little ball as she descends down into the floor. Again, creating this nice little rounding of the back, which is a good thing. She's gonna get to her bottom position. She's gonna come back up one vertebrae at a time. Sometimes we'll put our hand over here to give that athlete that feeling of that rolling up in that extended position, okay? She'll pause, and just like in this tempo, she'll do the same thing. She'll go down. We usually do half the amount of repetitions with this movement, and we don't actually add a lot of additional weight right now because this is going to get her spinal erectors on fire. We're doing this one, okay, so you're going to be anywhere between 5 up to 10 reps. We're not really going to go above 10 repetitions with this because it's going to get them burning. She's going to take a little break. Between those first two movements, we're going to be anywhere between 3 up to 5 sets. Okay, with the first version of that movement, we can be in the 10 up to the 20 or 30 rep range, okay? Once you start kind of being consistent in that 30 rep range, then we're gonna make it a little bit more challenging. One of the ways we make it a little more challenging is we have a barbell on our back. Just as we said earlier, this movement, it's gonna mimic that RDL or mimic that good morning. So she's gonna place the bar on her upper back in the same position she would for a good morning and or a back squat. She'll take it from the floor. She's gonna then, again, lock her back in position. She's providing that extra resistance, so she's gonna come up flat, boom, pausing, and then she's gonna come back down. We always wanna try to get a pause with that, and then we're gonna come back up. Boom, good. Where she doesn't want this barbell is on her neck, okay? We don't wanna put that extra pressure on her cervical, so she wants to put it on that lower part of her trap, okay, and her upper back. Thank you very much. Adding that extra resistance. Again, now we're not gonna be in that 20 rep range when we're putting the barbell on our back. We're gonna be now in that 5 to 10 rep range. Again, loading this no different than we would, say, a good morning or an RDL in terms of the rep scheme and based off of the intensity of the percentages. It's gonna be very focused on that lower back, which is a good thing, but you also have to take that into consideration for fatigue down the road. If you did a lot of heavy clean and jerks, you did a lot of clean pulls, then you're adding a lot of weighted hypers all in the same day. You have to allow recovery for that, okay? So you may want to stagger that or initially not do a ton of volume with a weighted version of that. We also use this exercise, again, we'll do one leg at a time. Sometimes you'll get athletes, you'll see their lower back, they'll be because they're pulling more with one leg or they're driving more with one side of their body. You may see their lower back muscles, one be a little bit higher than the other. So how do we combat that? We'll do this version with one leg at a time. So she'll get in there for safety purposes, start with both legs in, then she slides one leg out, okay? Now this is gonna now isolate one side of her lower back, okay? And she's gonna go down and she's gonna come up. Very similar to like a stagger stance RDL or a one-legged RDL. We're in that same, now it's in a very different range of motion. We're gonna do it again. Good, then she'll switch her legs, always making sure both are in at the same time so we don't have an accident. Again, she's keeping her hips square and she's coming up. She's feeling it more now on that left side. So she has a deficiency on that left side. We can address it. You may go like 5 on one and 10 on the other one. Thank you, Jess. So that if you do have this deficiency that you know that you've had an issue with your lower back, we will now balance that out by doing these. Okay, again, you don't need to do 80, but you could be doing sets of 5, sets of 8. Okay, it's very intense, not only the hamstring, but the glute in that side of your lower back. Okay, but we love these 4 versions of this movement, and there's a lot of different variations. You may do it to a row, you may do it some other stuff. For basic though, for a weightlifter, having your basic extension, again, a slow tempo is very important, not to get super crazy or fast. Adding the more advanced rolling or curling version of it, okay? And then you get to a point where you can then add the barbell. I don't like doing the rolling version with a barbell on your back. I just don't like that compression on the spine. I think that movement in itself is very intense, and I'd rather just do maybe a couple more reps with that or add an extra set or two, but you don't really need to do that, again, for weightlifters. Now, you're a jiu-jitsu guy, you're a wrestler, it's a little different story. We may add some extra additional weight for that, but not necessarily we need it for weightlifters because we're doing so much other lower back movements. Have any more questions, reach out to us.